Data from startup postmortems shows that 38% of failed companies cite running out of cash as their primary cause of death. While a dry bank account is the final symptom, the collapse often stems from a mismatch between the business model and its capital. Accepting outside money involves a constant trade. You gain immediate speed and access to capital by surrendering a portion of your ownership and operational control. A funding strategy functions as your runway. Getting the timing or the terms wrong can ground a perfect product before it ever has a chance to scale. This chart maps the spectrum of funding options available. There is an inverse relationship between velocity and autonomy. Prioritizing growth requires sacrificing control, while maintaining full ownership limits how fast you expand. Navigating this landscape effectively requires mapping the specific funding type to your current business stage and long-term goals. The goal is to raise the minimum capital necessary to reach your next proof point, ensuring you don't give away more equity than the current stage demands. Before approaching any external source for capital, you must establish an internal risk analysis at the idea stage. Utilizing the business model canvas allows you to visualize your value proposition and cost structures, exposing strategic blind spots before they manifest as financial losses. Integrating a contingency plan into this canvas proves to potential investors that you have anticipated market shifts and operational disruptions. This validation process requires a significant time investment, which delays the product launch in favor of identifying potential failures on paper first. Investors fund evidence and risk mitigation. Rigorous planning serves as the evidence that your business is a viable vessel for their capital. At the idea stage, the most accessible options are bootstrapping and friends and family. Funding the business through personal savings or your immediate network provides rapid access to cash without formal due diligence, allowing you to retain 100% control. However, growth is capped by your personal liquidity, and financial difficulties can quickly strain personal relationships. Documenting all terms in writing is essential to protect those relationships if the business fails. Moving into the validation stage introduces crowdfunding and grants. Reward-based crowdfunding validates demand by pre-selling products to early adopters. This generates capital for manufacturing without diluting your equity. Crowdfunding functions as a conversion tool for an existing audience. Campaigns rarely succeed without a pre-built following. Similarly, government or incubator grants offer non-dilutive cash, but are highly competitive and slow to process. Funding at these early stages preserves your autonomy, but it relies heavily on your personal network or your ability to build a following before you have a finished product. Once you have traction, angel investors may offer capital in exchange for 10 to 25% of your equity. Beyond the cash, these investors are often industry operators who provide mentorship and access to specialized networks that can accelerate your growth. Relinquishing equity means you are now operating on a fixed timeline to deliver a return on that investment. Angels typically look for a clear path toward a larger institutional raise or an exit that validates their early-stage risk. This capital serves as the bridge to scale, but it marks the point where your business decisions must satisfy external stakeholders. In the growth stage, scaling operations requires the massive capital injections provided by bank debt or venture capital. Bank debt allows you to borrow capital on a fixed repayment schedule. This keeps your equity and control intact, but the bank requires collateral and fixed repayments regardless of whether the business is currently profitable. Venture capital operates differently, with institutional funds investing in high-margin models with the potential for massive scale. The trade involves significant dilution and the loss of board seats in exchange for the capital needed to dominate a market quickly. VCs require a 10 times return to satisfy their own fund requirements. A business that grows steadily but slowly is often considered a failure by these standards and may be forced into a liquidation or a radical pivot. These scale engines provide explosive growth, but applying a venture capital model to a steady local service business often results in the fund forcing a shutdown when growth targets aren't met. We can categorize the ideal funding path by matching these variables to 3 specific founder profiles. The bootstrapper prioritizes control and operates with low capital. The focus here is on self-funding, using the business model canvas to validate demand before spending and keeping full ownership. The pragmatist runs a steady margin service or local business. This path avoids venture capital entirely, targeting bank debt once revenue is established, or seeking out non-dilutive grants to scale. The VC hopeful builds high-margin, scalable platforms. This path uses angel rounds to hit proof points and relies on strict contingency planning to satisfy institutional investors during later VC rounds. Your funding type must align with your actual business model and current stage of development. Raising money when you have the leverage of existing revenue or traction leads to better terms and more favorable valuation. A funding strategy that preserves founder control for as long as possible ensures the business survives on your own terms.